Kikaru is the strongest adventurer who wants to retire and have a normal life. To gain his freedom, he has to train 5 magical girls to become his successor. But when they all turn out to be useless but freaky baddies, he cracks them instead. It all begins on a certain day when Kikaru tells the guild officer, Enome, that he wants to quit his job because he's realized that he's wasting his youth training and fighting monsters like Saitama, when he should be cracking baddies like all his age mates. Since he's the strongest hunter in town, Enome tempts him to stay by promising to introduce him to a cute new recruit. Just then, a purple-haired baddie, with excess stuffing in the right places, arrives and introduces herself as Hitamu, the new recruit in the martial arts field. Kikaru is fascinated by her since he's never seen a martial artist before, so Enome asks Kikaru to complete her first quest with her, and he agrees. As he stares at Hitamu, Enome thinks he's crushing on her, but Bro secretly plans for her to take his place if she's strong enough. When they arrive at the forest, Hitamu informs Kikaru that there are some slimes approaching them, and Kikaru is impressed that she can detect monsters from afar thanks to her human-beast genetics. However, the airhead leaves their hiding spot and bows to the slimes, while explaining that it's the proper way to start a martial arts brawl. Kikaru tells her to look ahead, but she doesn't listen, so the slimes attack her and use all of Diddy's secret techniques on her sensitive areas. This puts Kikaru in a tight spot because he has to touch his partner to save her, but she gives him consent, so she takes the slimes away from her. While finishing off the slimes, he explains to her that the best way to slay slimes is to stab their cores. However, when he asks if she has a weapon, she claims that her body is her weapon, but Kikaru finds it silly since she can't even protect her body. She then informs him that there's another monster ahead, so he takes comfort in the fact that at least her recon ability is great. While walking towards the monster, Kikaru explains to Hitamu that her direct martial artist fighting style is useless in the forest, and what's best is to carefully observe monsters and ambush them. But Hitamu complains that it's unfair because martial artists are trained to fight head-on with no cheap tricks. Shortly afterwards, they encounter a large bear, and Kikaru asks Hitamu to hide as backup while he makes the first strike, so she promises to do her best. However, the bear spots her immediately, and she tries to face it head-on, but the bear puts her in the most sus submission hold imaginable. Seeing this, Kikaru realizes that she's the exact opposite of him since she has as many brain cells as a wet sock, but after slaying the bear with an arrow shot, he feels she did a good job being bait. Soon after, they return to the guild, where Kikaru explains to Enome that he plans to live a sweet campus life after quitting his job, but he needs to find a good successor first so that the city can be safe. Since Hitamu is not fit for the task, Enome introduces him to another new recruit named Medina, but Kikaru wonders if she can fight since she's just a lolly. However, Medina says she doesn't want to work with a filthy gooner, but Kikaru claims he has no interest in a human washboard, which makes her so angry that she bonks him in the head with her staff. A while later, the trio go on their first quest together, and they soon encounter a slime, so Kikaru sends Hitamu to attack the discount Rimuru while he and Medina watch in the bushes. However, the idiot makes the same mistake she made the previous day, and the slime starts attacking her. As Hitamu struggles with the slime, Medina wants to help, but Kikaru stops her and explains that he's decided to be more level-headed than the previous day, so that things would play out better. However, the dummy ends up getting violated by the slimes again, so he finally steps in and saves her from the slimes. Afterwards, Medina heals Hitamu from her injuries, and Kikaru is surprised by how fast she heals, so she explains that she's a magical prodigy on par with Doctor Strange. Suddenly, a mega slime arrives, and Kikaru informs them that it'll be difficult to hit the core given its large size, so Hitamu activates a martial arts move which boosts her attack power when she counters. However, the slime ignores her and attacks Medina instead, but Kikaru saves her from the fall. After the slime leaves, Kikaru realizes that his retirement plans are in the mud because he's inexperienced in leading groups, and he now has to train 2 boneheads. A few days later, a guy named Will arrives at the guild hall and thanks Enome for her help, and she tells him he can come by at any time. Kikaru watches them because he knows Will is one of his mentors, who is retiring to take over his family's apple farm. Will pats Kikaru on the head while assuring him that he doesn't have to worry since he's the ace of the town now. He feels that Kikaru is sad about him leaving, but Kikaru is actually annoyed because the main hunter's retirement means he can't retire anymore. Some hours later, Kikaru is still feeling down about Will leaving, so Ainome cheers him up by informing him that she has 2 new recruits to join his party. However, she mentions that they are both young girls, which makes him even more annoyed, but Hitamu is excited that she'd be getting more friends. Ainome reveals that the 2 members are a knight and a black sorceress, and this makes Kikuru suddenly interested in them because he knows that they're both extremely powerful jobs. Just then, a girl walks in and naps on their table, and Ainome introduces her as Dana, the black sorceress, but Kikuru is worried because she's showing zero motivation to do anything. Ainome claims that Dana has a burning passion, but Dana proves her wrong by bluntly saying that she doesn't want to work. Hearing this, Kikuru decides to leave her behind since he doesn't have time to train soulless novices, but Dana drags him back and asks him to let her work with them because she has to earn a living. Soon after, they arrive at the forest, and Kikuru realizes that his current team is worse than the Lakers, so he comes up with a formation that would help them in battle. When Hitamu asks about Maidens, Kikuru explains that she went to school, and she's still a bit exhausted after the quest the previous day. However, Hitomi is still beaming with confidence after working for 3 days straight, and Kikuru realizes that it's because of her natural ability as a beast human. Dana suddenly hugs her from behind and starts praising her for being cheerful and energetic. Just then, Hitamu senses a monster nearby, so she tells Kikuru to rest up while she heads off to face it and promises to do her best to meet expectations. However, seconds later, the beast has her in an upside-down submission hold while treating her face like an ice cream bar, so Kikuru calls Dana to fight, only to see her collapsing from exhaustion. Kikuru is surprised that she has less stamina than Rick Ross, so she explains that black sorcerers usually stay indoors all year long and study hard. She then reminds him that the bear is about to steal Hitamu's V card, so Kikuru saves her. Hitamu apologizes for being useless, but he scolds her, saying that she shouldn't bother trying to look out for him when she can't even look out for herself properly. This makes her feel bad, so he pats her on the head while telling her to take care of herself more since he cares about her, and this makes her blush until Dana ruins their romantic moment. Kikuru tells Dana to prove her worth by doing something about the monster's den behind her, but suddenly, some rabbit monsters jump out of the den. Hitamu starts petting them, thinking they're cuddly creatures, but one of the rabbits suddenly spears her in the gut, and Kikuru explains that they're actually fast and powerful creatures despite their cute looks. As the rabbits beat up Hitamu, Kikuru wonders if they're so annoyed because the bear had taken over the area around their den. The rabbits in front of Dana start stomping the ground, but Dana doesn't want to fight them because she used to take care of rabbits years ago. However, a rabbit suddenly jabs her in the face, and this makes her so angry that she activates her dark magic. But the rabbits dodge all her lightning strikes. While watching this, Kikuru notices that her reaction is slow, even though her power is perfect, and she asks him to fight alongside her, but Kikuru tells her to predict the enemy's movements before trying again. This shocks her, so he explains that he's looking after novices because he's looking for a successor who would allow him to live the rom-com life he's always dreamed of. Hearing this, Dana concludes that he's just another egoist, and she turns to ask Hitamu for help, only to see that the rabbits are feasting on her cakes. She then notices that Kikuru is twitching in the corner like a brain-dead zombie, so she asks him to help her if he's worried, but he explains that she needs to get better by herself. Suddenly, some rabbits start attacking her, and she tries to fight back, but the rabbits overwhelm her and eat her pudding right beside Hitamu. Kikuru decides to step in, but suddenly, Dana goes Super Saiyan and fires a powerful spell, which nails her own teammates instead of the rabbits. When they return to the Ground Guild Hall, Dana blames Kikuru for not helping them, but suddenly, a knight named Hana arrives and introduces herself as Dana's old friend. Dana assures Kikuru that Hana's fighting skills are the real deal, and Hana claims that she's second to none when it comes to close combat. Hearing this, Kikuru celebrates because he feels his retirement is very close. A while later, Hana reveals through a television ad that she's the heiress of an equipment company called Najin Sports, and this shocks everyone. She asks them to treat her as an equal, but once they leave the room, an entire army of Glazers comes to greet Hana. As they head off to their mission, Hana's guards ask Kikuru to look after Hana because there's a side of her that's hidden. When they enter the forest, Kikuru tries to call Dana to ask her, but he sees that she skipped work to play video games, and Hana begs him to forgive her. Shortly after, they find some slimes, and Hitamu tries to attack them, but Kikuru destroys them quickly to prevent another Brazzers scene. Just then, a giant boar charges towards them, but Hana knocks it down with a single swing, causing Hitamu to glaze her. Hitamu then informs them that a group of boars are arriving, and they all try to run away, but Hitamu slips and falls in a spot where she's surrounded by bears. She stands up, aiming to fight back, but the boars start feasting on her peaches, so Hana decides to use a skill called Frenzy, which trades reason for power. However, once she activates it, she starts acting dumber than Patrick Star. But she still manages to destroy the boars. Afterwards, she takes off her armor and starts smothering Kikuru with her gigantic plots until he loses consciousness. When they return to the guild hall, Kikuru tells Ainome that Hana did most of the work during their fight, and she begs Kikuru to forget about her wild side, which he witnessed. As Kikuru brainstorms about his current situation, Hana's guards show up and pressure him to cooperate with Hana, but he gets frustrated as he realizes that he gained nothing from training his 4 new recruits. Several days later, Hitamu is in the forest getting snacked on by a tree monster while her partners watch, and Kikuru orders Dana to stop the tree monster with freezing magic, but sees that she as well is caught by its vines. Seeing this, Hana gets enraged and activates her frenzy mode, but her brain goes mush once again, so Kikuru freaks out. Hours later, Kikuru meets the girls at the guild and scolds them for being a bunch of repackaged Sakuras, and Maidina tries to defend herself by saying she's a healer, but Kikuru shuts her up by threatening to scold her for the entire group. Hana claims that she fights monsters pretty well, but Kikuru complains that she takes down a lot more than monsters when she's at the battlefield. To defend herself, Dana lies that her legs give out while fighting monsters due to fear, but Kikuru points out that she isn't that sensitive. Hitamu then apologizes for dragging everyone down and promises to do better the next day, but Kikuru informs her that the next day is a day off and tells her to get some rest this time since she's been fighting for 5 days in a row. He then recommends that they all play around somewhere, and Hana thinks it's a good idea for them to bond, so the others agree. The next day, Hana walks through town while all the gooners around stare at her bouncing castles, and she eventually meets up with Hitamu, who praises her elegant dress. Hana asks why she's wearing an open outfit, so Hitamu explains that people normally wear those clothes for sports, where she came from, because it's cheap and easy to move in. She then reveals that it's the only thing she has in her wardrobe, so Hana decides that they'd buy clothes that day, which excites her even more. Hana asks if she's from the Gurren province, but she reveals that she lives alone in the Buru province, which makes Hana conclude that she's a strong, independent girl. When Dana arrives, she first complains that she doesn't fit into their melon staring contest, but Hitamu praises the Temu Barbie dress she's wearing. However, Dana claims that Hitamu's outfit is too freaky, so Hitamu shows her that her name is written in the plot area of her outfit to ensure that she doesn't lose it. Suddenly, Maidina arrives with 2 other girls in identical uniforms and explains to them that there's nothing to worry about since they're having a normal get-together. They warn her to behave with moderation and leave, and Maidina feels relieved that the student council girls have finally let her go. While walking together, Dana and Hitamu start teasing Maidina by calling her an angel, as the other 2 girls called her, so she starts yelling at them as well. However, Dana places her in front of the line so they'd be walking in order of their plot sizes. At the guild hall, Ainome hands Kikuru a document, which reveals that 17 male guards and 9 female guards have been unalived in the province within the last month. He says he feels unsure about the female casualties because the monsters in the forest have a strange way of fighting girls, and they're particularly obsessed with Hitamu in a weird way. As he describes the monster's acts, Ainome freaks out and explains that monsters usually attack people in order to get mana from their flesh and bodily fluids. Hearing this, Kikuru realizes that the monsters are keeping Hitamu alive because she has finer mana than most other people, and they don't want to end it all in one, but he decides not to neglect the risk of death. As he brainstorms, Ainome laughs and claims that he's worried for the girls, and he admits that he's contradicting himself by stressing over them when he should be resting. Meanwhile, the girls are chilling in a restaurant, enjoying some sweets together, and Dana asks the girls to talk about their love lives. However, Dana reveals that she doesn't have a love story because her parents are strict, and even at that moment, she's being monitored by several disguised spies her parents sent. Maidana also claims that she hasn't dated anyone due to her position, and Hitamu adds that her own days are filled with training as well. Dana admits that she's in the same boat as them since she's a shut-in, and she suggests that Kikuru could end up dating one of them, but this makes all of them blush. She then calls Kikuru and asks which of them he'd like to date, but Kikuru crushes their dreams by picking Enome without hesitation, and they realize that they can't compete against her. After their dinner, Hitomu walks by the road, feeling happy that she had so much fun with the girls, and she decides to go out with Kikuru next time. She senses Kikuru in the path below, so she rushes to meet him but ends up falling and landing with her honeypot directly on his face. Her body starts twitching from overstimulation, but Kikuru notices that her cupcake smells more tantalizing than a freshly baked apple pie. However, his body starts feeling fun, and he wonders if it's the mana that's causing it, but Hitomu asks if he's carrying a knife, making him realize that his Excalibur is poking her head. As he tries to move her, Donna suddenly takes a picture of them while the other girls freak out, and he tries to explain, but she threatens to take the photo to court. The next day, Enome apologizes to her colleague, Esine, for making her dinner the reception work for the day, but Esine says it's fine and waves her goodbye. Soon after, Enome joins Kikuru in the forest because she wants to investigate the monster behavior he told her about, but Hitomu worries that Enome isn't allowed in the danger zone. So he explains that it's fine so long as she has her permit. Enome reveals that she usually asks Kikuru to escort her on ecological surveys, and she can use simple defensive magic, so Kikuru informs Hitomu that her job is to lead them away from stronger monsters and fight weaker ones. While exploring the forest together, Enome asks Kikuru how they'd investigate the monsters, so he explains that she'd just lose to a monster and get teased afterwards as usual. This makes her conclude that Hitomu is useless to him, but Kikuru says she's the best match for him most days because she acts as his personal observation hockey. Suddenly, Hitomu falls into a hole, and a snake suddenly attacks her, so she wrestles it away. Kikuru informs her that the snake isn't venomous, but the snake starts toying with her body, so Enome asks Kikuru to help her. As he moves away to help her, another snake attacks Enome and tears off her outfit to reveal the weapons of mass destruction on her chest, which makes Kikuru freak out. The snakes then start feasting on her plots, while Kikuru watches like a typical gooner, and she begs him to help, so he destroys the snake and helps her unwrap it from her body. Afterwards, they meet up with Hitomu, who is already on the verge of exploding, so they help her as well. When they return to the guild, Enome introduces Esine as her daughter, and Esine welcomes her with a hug. Some days later, the guild conducts a medical checkup, which they usually do at the start of every year, and Kikuru puts his shirt back on since his checkup is complete. Suddenly, the nurse starts freaking out over the fact that the doctor is missing, and she brainstorms about what to do until she sees Kikuru standing inside. The nurse, Misu, asks him to be a replacement doctor and explains the list of names they have, but the latest one, since they still have 4 more patients to be examined, but she can't call the doctor back because she doesn't have a phone. Kikuru asks Misu to do the doctor's work instead, since she has more knowledge, but she explains that her imp-sized body can't fit into the doctor's coat and starts crying while pleading with him to help her so that she doesn't get fired. He then points out that the examinees would recognize him since they're all guards, but she suggests wearing a mask and covering his face with a bandage. By the time she's done with his doctor makeover, Kikuru looks like the mummy, and he complains that he isn't familiar with all the technical stuff, but she tells him not to worry because the remaining examinees are young people who wouldn't have any serious diseases. Hearing this, Kikuru starts to suspect these 4 examinees, and his fears become reality when they reveal themselves to be the 4 members of his party. To keep his identity a secret, Kikuru gives himself the cool name, Dr. Murder, but he immediately starts freaking out when he sees the P analysis equipment, so Misu assures him that she'll handle that part. During the checkup, Hitomu successfully measures the heights and weights of the girls, and Misu takes them to a separate room to measure their jug sizes, which makes him feel relieved. However, he overhears Misu freaking out over the fact that Hana's melons are 110 on the scale, and his brain starts spiraling as well. After the measurement, Misu arrives to tell him that it's time to check Hana's heartbeat, and he realizes that he'd be in trouble if he acts in a way that makes them suspicious, so he does his best Aizen impression while telling her to take her plot covers off. However, Misu informs him that she's just meant to open up the chest area of her dress, so he rephrased his words. Suddenly, Hana takes off the full covering to unleash her enormous milk tanks in their full glory, and this sight straight up sends Kikuru's mind into outer space. When Misu tells him to examine her, he picks up the stethoscope, but his hands start wobbling because he knows Hana's guards will destroy him with Mortal Kombat fatalities if they find out what he's about to do. He ends up placing the stethoscope on one of her milk bags, so Misu informs him that he's meant to place it at the base of her chest. As he examines her, his mint-sized brain overheats, but he eventually finishes, and the next person on the list reveals herself to be Donna. When she opens up her tiny package, Kikuru starts losing his mind again as he realizes that she's actually a really beautiful maiden. After her checkup, Maidana arrives to be examined, but Kikuru ends up checking her back instead because he doesn't want to trigger his pocket rocket once again. When Misu questions him about it, he explains that he's bothered by the bruise on her lower back, so she explains that it's a seal that was given to her to enable her to use white magic. She then goes into Kikuru's favorite incognito position so that he can examine her back properly, but when he starts to examine her, his hands start trembling at super speed, making her whole body vibrate. Afterwards, Hidemu steps in for her examination, and Kikuru is relieved that she's the last person because he's used to seeing her in crazy positions, but she suddenly starts acting embarrassed. As she opens up her milk packs, Kikuru freaks out as he wonders why she, of all people, is suddenly acting like an untouched Disney princess, and when he places the stethoscope on her heart, he notices that her heart is beating faster than the drums at a Michael Jackson concert. Suddenly, she starts making lady noises, and this makes Kikuru freak out even more. After the examination, Misu starts praising Kikuru for doing a great job, but Hidemu suddenly calls his name while whispering to him, causing him to freeze in shock. After she leaves, his 2 brain cells finally work, as he realizes that she figured him out through his scent, and this makes him pass out. The next day, the 2 lolis of the team are doing stretches in a grass field while Kikuru explains to them that he decided to divide them into physical and magical teams and set up a training menu so that they can properly learn the basics. Since he can't teach them how to cast spells, he decides that they'd do a fitness menu instead because they aren't good at physical activities. But Maidana starts complaining that she'd prefer having Hana as a trainer instead of Kikuru and Donna, whom she sees as an evil duo. When it's Donna's turn to get stretched, Donna tells Maidana that she likes her because she's tiny and awkward, but Maidana pins her to the ground while yelling at her for spilling insults instead of compliments. As the 2 angry birds fight, Kikuru pulls Maidana away and tells them to focus on their stretches, so Donna invites Maidana to join her for some calm stretches. However, when Maidana joins her, she suddenly stretches out her back into a painful position, and Kikuru tries to help, but he jumps back when he sees that their tiny plots are showing through their shirts. Eventually, the 2 bird-brained idiots collapse and start gasping for air on the ground, so Kikuru yells at them for getting exhausted before the training can even begin. Shortly after, Kikuru jogs with the girls, but Donna passes out because she's never done cardio a day in her life. Afterwards, Kikuru guides them as they do sit-ups, but Donna flops again and starts yelling at him for not ending their training when she passed out earlier. He explains that he has to push her a bit so that she can at least reach the average fitness requirements of an adventurer, but she still complains that she can't proceed because her hips have given out. An hour later, the girls drink some water to refresh themselves and start arguing over who worked out better, but Maidana suddenly collapses, so Kikuru catches her and apologizes for not being an expert coach. However, she sprains her ankle and decides that she'll only do the rest of the training with her upper body, but Kikuru asks her to heal herself with white magic, so she explains that she can't use it so conveniently since her injury was caused by her own carelessness. Kikuru decides that they should call it a day, so Donna offers to piggyback Maidana back to the city, and she agrees. On their way back, Kikuru watches the 2 girls finally get along, and he feels that they accomplished something during the training, but they suddenly collapse and start fighting again. The next day, Hana and Hidemu are lying exhausted on the ground after training, and Kikuru admits that their sparring was a better training session than the 2 airheaded lolis from the previous day. During their break, Hana admits that she isn't on Kikuru's level since she couldn't even land a blow on him, but he reveals that he was desperate as well since he knows a single blow from her would send him straight to the afterlife. He explains that Hana is already better than an average knight in terms of strength, but she tends to rely on frenzy mode whenever she gets overwhelmed, and this often leads to a breakdown in formation, so he advises her to refrain from activating it when her comrades are around. Hearing this, she apologizes, and Kikuru is happy because he was able to ensure his safety by pointing out her flaw without going into details, and he feels that the entire point of the training that day was for him to say that to her. Hana drinks up all the water in her flask, and Hidemu tries to offer her a drink, but Kikuru decides to give her his water flask so that Hidemu can stay hydrated as well. However, when he opens his bag, he sees that he only carried a mana bottle, but Hidemu doesn't understand why, so he explains that he brought it to replenish the mana of the magic duo while training them the previous day. He then hands it to Hana while assuring her that it'll quench her thirst, and as she drinks it, she notices that it tastes really good. As she drinks up, he tells Hitomu that she moves around too much and wastes her energy doing battles, which is the reason she's more exhausted at the moment when she has way more stamina than him. He advises her not to go for the win immediately, but instead, learn how to make her opponents tire themselves out before finishing them, and Hitomu promises to do her best, but Kikoru doubts her because it's the same words she says before getting violated by monsters. Suddenly, Hana drops the bottle and starts doing Fortnite dances, and Kikoru sees that she's gone into frenzy mode, so he dashes away faster than A-Train to hide behind a bush. When Hana asks about Kikoru, Hitomu struggles to cook up a proper life for him, and Kikoru remembers Hana's maid telling him to ask Donna about her bizarre mode, so he calls Donna. After he explains what's happened to Donna, she reveals that Hana is currently intoxicated by an overdose of magic and explains that frenzy is the normal process of sending mana to the brain by removing limiters, but in Hana's case, she gets drunk before the skill is even activated. Donna admits that Hana's power and toughness are first class, but reveals that her magic resistance is so low that she can't even withstand her own mana, so the process she's been using so far isn't actually the real frenzy, but a unique version which her maid calls Flower Frenzy. However, Donna points out that it's less taxing than the main frenzy with the limiter off, and the duration is short because she's using mana rapidly. When Kikoru checks on the girls, he sees Hana playing around with Hitomu's natural pillows, but he wonders why the effects of her flower frenzy are lasting longer than usual. Suddenly, Hana starts treating Hitomu's body like an ice cream bar, and Kikoru watches with full focus since he can't afford OnlyFans at home. Hana tries to open up Hitomu's workout gear so she can drink milk from the source, but Hitomu jumps away while explaining that she can't produce any juice yet. However, Hana still proceeds to drink from her jugs, and Kikoru wonders why Hana usually always tackles him when she's in frenzy mode, so Donna guesses that she feels an intense emotion towards him, which may be love. Donna then suggests that he face Hana with full injuries because she believes that Hana won't do anything reckless if she sees him hurt. After ending the call, Kikoru comes out of his hiding spot and delivers a Leonardo DiCaprio-level acting performance while pretending to be injured, but Donna suddenly starts eating his thumb, so he pulls away from her out of fear. However, his gooner instincts kick in, as he tells her he's injured in the face as well, so she tackles him to the ground while treating his face like a popsicle. Suddenly, Hana snaps back to her senses, and she's so embarrassed by her current position that she Hulk smashes Kikoru into the ground. The next day, the team runs into a giant bear in the forest, and when Hana charges in to face it, Donna tries to support her with lightning magic, only to end up zapping Hana instead. Hitomu rushes in to check on Hana, but the bear grabs her, so Maidana gets overwhelmed and starts whining. But this alerts some other monsters, who attack them. As the monsters feast on the girls, Donna gets enraged and fires a massive lightning spell, which knocks out everyone around. Later that evening, the team has a fancy dinner to celebrate their first victory at a novice party, and Donna starts bragging about how she annihilated the monsters, so Kikoru reminds her that she hurt them as well. Hitomu admits that she wasn't of much help since she couldn't defeat any monsters, but Hana says it isn't true because she saved her, and Donna blames the monster attack on Maidana's screaming. As Kikoru tries the food, he praises Hitomu's cooking skills because he never imagined that the bear they hunted that day could taste that good, and this makes her happy because her only true skills are housework related. Donna then asks Kikoru if he'd prefer a girlfriend who can cook, and he admits that it's his dream, so Donna proposes that they do a cooking contest to impress him. However, Kikoru points out that the other girls won't be able to cook because they have people doing them at home, but they tell him not to underestimate them because they plan on going plus ultra. Shortly after, Maidana is in the kitchen struggling to figure out how to cook steak, and Kikoru comes to check on her, only to see her dumping an entire bucket of soy sauce into the pot. While watching her, he notices that her ingredients are correct, but she's just messing up the proportions and cooking up a special grade curse instead of food. He then goes outside to check on the other girls, but he sees Donna fire bending into the grill and Hana putting on a full show while pounding beef with a mallet. Soon after, the three girls present their dishes to Kikoru, but they look so monstrous that he asks them to take responsibility by taking the first bite. Immediately, they taste the food, their outfits explode like an episode of Food Wars, and when they ask Kikoru who won, he says they all failed miserably. When the girls regain consciousness, Maidana asks Hitomu what her secret ingredient was, and she reveals that it was the love bone of the bear, causing Maidana to freak out. Several days later, Hitomu is walking cheerfully through the forest, as she's excited about doing a quest with Kikoru and Maidana, while Donna and Hana have a special physical training of their own in a different location. Kikoru informs them that the quest isn't their usual monster hunting, because they're in the forest to gather some flowers called lupin flowers, which disperse pollen with a silencing effect when their petals are strongly agitated. He explains that the silencing effect wouldn't be a problem for himself and Hitomu since they're physical fighters, but a caster like Maidana would have problems with incantations if she's affected. Kikoru then tells them that they don't need to fight any monsters, but he asks Hitomu to be on her guard at all times, so she assures him that she'll do her best. However, she trips and falls on her face, so Maidana scolds her for always paying half attention to herself and offers to heal her, but Kikoru tells her not to bother because she's learned a new technique. As she takes a prayer stance, her body begins to glow, and she explains that she can control her mana to use it to heal herself, and even though she successfully heals the injury, Maidana and Kikoru are depressed that she's gotten better at another non-attack skill. However, Maidana explains that Hitomu can't heal others with her new powers because natural healing can only work on personal wounds and illnesses, just like drugs, but white sorcerers like her can heal others because they're borrowing the power of the holy bird. Hearing this, Kikoru realizes that the holy crest on her lower back is the source of her power, but Maidana asks him how he knows what it looks like, so he lies that he saw it on an episode of The Boys. He then declares that it's time to continue their flower-picking mission and warns them not to touch the petals, but when Hitomu tries to say her catchphrase, he signals her to be quiet. Minutes later, Maidana is gathering some of the lupin flowers, and she feels that there's still a chance that they'd be attacked by monsters even though they don't intend to fight, but she's low-key scared because Kikoru is far away. Suddenly, a monster bird appears in front of her, and she tries to move away but stumbles into her basket and falls on the lupin flowers, chasing them to emit their special pollen. After inhaling the pollen, Maidana notices that she can no longer speak, and as the monster grabs her, she wonders why Hitomu hasn't picked up its scent yet. Meanwhile, Hitomu is picking up her own batch of lupin flowers while complaining that their strong scent is making her smell ability useless, and she decides to remedy this by scanning the area with her ears instead. When she turns, she sees Maidana waving her hand frantically while begging for help, but since she can't hear her, she assumes that Maidana is playing around, so she cheerfully waves her hands in return. Maidana gets frustrated and wonders why she's the one getting targeted by monsters instead of Hitomu, and she remembers that the stuffed pecker bird has a habit of collecting shiny things, so she waves her wand at it. However, the bird ends up grabbing her instead and uses its tentacles to put her in the kind of bondage situation that you virgins fantasize about. Luckily, Kikoru arrives and cuts her free before taking out the monstrous bird. When Hitomu arrives, she comforts Maidana with a tight hug, and Kikoru admits that it's his fault for leaving them alone. Hitomu then notices that Maidana is bleeding internally, and Kikoru realizes that she wouldn't be able to heal it until the silencing effect wears off, so he tells her to endure until they reach the city. However, Hitomu asks Kikoru to leave her alone with Maidana for a few minutes, because there's something she wants to try. Once he leaves, Hitomu reveals her plots and hugs Maidana tightly while activating her healing powers, and she explains that she's transferring chakra into her body by bare skin contact. Maidana tries to argue that she's wasting her time, but she realizes that she can now speak again, so they start celebrating. After putting her gear back on, Hitomu cries while admitting that she's the reason Maidana got into trouble, and she says she's glad that Maidana is okay. Seeing this, Maidana holds her hand and tells her that she's best suited for the support role in terms of her abilities and personality, and she isn't cut out to be a martial artist, but this makes her freak out. The next day, Kikoru is at the guild hall, and S-Sign asks him if the girls are coming that day, but he says they aren't because they have medical checkups scheduled for that day. He decides to hunt monsters on his own that day because their presence so far has prevented him from picking his own gig, but S-Sign tells him to go on a date instead, and tells Enome that she loves him because he's reliable. Kikoru knows he'd be put in an underground prison if he's caught, so he tries to reject her smoothly, but she pulls an Uno reverse by saying she doesn't actually have feelings for him. Bro starts freaking out while asking why she wanted a date with him, so A-Sign explains that she wants a date which involves all three of them because she wants Kikoru to get married to Enome and become her new papa. This makes both adults freak out, and Enome tells S-Sign that she's not getting married to Kikoru, but these words pierce directly into his soul, so he tells them that he's heading home for the day. Suddenly, Enome collapses, so they take her to the hospital, where they advise her to rest up since she's been overworking herself. While checking on Enome, S-Sign asks Kikoru to help her change, but he refuses because he doesn't want the sus situation from the forest to repeat itself. However, when he enters the room, he sees that S-Sign has changed her into Angela White's favorite work clothes, and she asks him to check her temperature before running away. Enome gives Kikoru consent to check her temperature, so he jams his head on hers to measure it, but the sight of her oversized milk factories makes his brain start overheating, so she assumes that he has a fever as well. He then notices that she's covered in sweat, so he helps her wipe off. She apologizes for putting him in a tough situation with the girls, but she also admits that he's become a much better person because he's helped them develop into proper adventurers. However, Bro can't hear a word she says because of all the plots in front of him. But Misu suddenly arrives and reveals that the hospital fired her after learning about the incident the other day. She assures him that he'll be fine since she didn't reveal his identity to them, and takes S-Sign out of the room. Enome gets worried about S-Sign and tries to chase after her, but she falls on Kikoru, causing his dark night to rise. Several days later, some adventurers are in danger in the forest, and the mage suggests heading back to the city. But the armored guy asks how they're supposed to defeat the monster bug in front of them when they're currently separated from their comrade named Nome. The next morning, Enome informs Kikoru and Dana that a large repel spider was found the previous day during a search in the Mebuki forest, but Dana doesn't know what a repel spider is, so Kikoru explains that it's a monster that can sense the bloodlust of opponents and dodge any attacks. The two adventurers that faced it, Yu and Senlek, explain that the monster's spidey senses rendered their attacks useless, and Dana realizes that she was called for this quest because close-range fighters are at a disadvantage against it. Yu starts whining about how the spider could annihilate anyone with a single bite, and it has threads that are stronger than iron. So Enome asks Kikoru if he thinks he can defeat it. Kikoru admits that it would be a tough opponent because of its powers, but he has faith that Dana can take care of it. However, Yu tells him to give up because the spider's sending ability has more range than any other repel spider since it can see its opponents from miles away, and Senlek claims that a big monster isn't suited for Kikoru since he gained his fame by defeating small monsters. Their harsh words pierce his soul like daggers, so Dana tells them to stop tormenting her emotionally weak king. Hours later, Kikoru and the girls arrive at the forest, and Kikoru explains that their mission is to rescue some adventurers still trapped in the forest, but he mentions that the monster isn't a good match for them. Because of this, he asks Hitamu to search for the missing guard while avoiding the monster, and gives Maidina the task of healing the guards if they're injured, while Hana takes care of the emergency guard. He feels that he should have made an ideal division of roles, but when he remembers that the girls always end up in weird situations, he realizes that there's no point because he'd never get the ideal result, so he warns Hana not to use frenzy. As they explore the forest, Kikoru keeps his distance from Hitamu and the others, and explains to Dana that it's safer that way because fighting with 4 newcomers is a burden as they walk in a different direction. Dana says she wishes she were in the rescue group because she doesn't think she'd be useful against the deadly spider. But Kikoru explains that the monster avoids attacks by sensing the area of the body that the attack is focused on, which means that her wide-range lighting attack is a threat to it. He then suggests that they use the hunting method to face it, but Dana doesn't know what it means, so he explains that she could block all the monster's escape paths with flame magic. Meanwhile, Hitamu is caught in a monster's nest, and Maidana yells at her for falling for a trap which she warned them about. As Maidana tries to help her, Hana stops her and informs them that the spider's web is strong and elastic, and Hitamu tries to push Maidana away, but ends up pulling her into the trap as well. Maidana struggles to escape, but this only puts them in an intense wrestling position, so Hana lights up a matchstick to burn the webs. On the other side of the forest, Dana burns some of the spider's nests with flame magic, and she's surprised that it actually worked, so Kikoru explains that the main ingredient of the spider web is protein, even though it's as strong as iron. As they move ahead, Kikoru explains that the plan is for him to act as a decoy, stealing the monster's attention while she burns the surroundings with flames, but suddenly, the spider ambushes them, so Kikoru drags her out of harm's way. After tossing Dana aside, Kikoru tries to attack, but the spider counters with a strike of its own, which he manages to dodge. Kikoru then asks Dana to follow the plan by burning the area and charges in to face the beast, but she complains that they're moving too fast for her to focus her attack, so Kikoru tells her not to worry about him. Hearing this, she activates her flame spell, but the spider evades it, so Dana apologizes for failing. Kikoru realizes that the spider read their intent to trap it, so he decides to try another plan, but suddenly, the spider attacks Dana from behind. However, Kikoru jumps in and takes the hit instead, so Dana scares the spider away with a flame blast. Donna cries while checking on him, but he brainstorms about a way to get out of this situation. With tears spilling from her eyes, Donna tells Kikuru that she'd expose his crimes on Epstein Island if he dies, so he scolds her with blood spilling from his mouth and asks her not to soil his name. She asks how he's able to move despite being stabbed with a lethal poison, so he explains that he ingested the antidote the instant he got stabbed by the spider because he knew there was no healer around to help him. However, he reveals that the poison is so potent that his hands still feel numb, so she recommends going back to the city for the day, but he decides that they should settle there instead. He explains that they need to end the quest as soon as possible because the monsters of the forest, including the spider, would soon be making their way to the city, but she reminds him that his body is still weakened, so he promises that he'll recover in 10 minutes. Donna then uses ice magic to create a structure around them and explains that it would protect them if the spider returns. Suddenly, she takes off her gear and explains that she has a skill which nullifies poison, which makes him realize that it's the reason she's never fallen sick before. While holding him, Donna explains that she'd be able to draw the poison out of his body by making contact with him and using her body fluids on him, so he permits her to do it. She then treats his body like a lollipop, but Kikuru says he still feels sick, so she drops her love juice directly into his mouth. Kikuru is instantly healed, so he thanks her for her help by patting her on the head. While dressing up, Donna takes down the ice dome, and Kikuru says there's a place he needs to go with her. Meanwhile, the rescue group finds Noma in a cave, and Midna heals her with white magic, but she apologizes for putting them in trouble. At the same time, Kikuru and Donna arrive at a building where he suggests lodging for the night, but Donna thinks he wants to steal her V-card, so he explains that the plan is to use the shelter as a trap. After examining the area, Kikuru suddenly kicks one of the crystals around the house, and this makes Donna freak out, so he explains that the spider won't come around if the crystal is there. While walking to the door, he asks Donna to burn down the house, causing her to freeze in shock. A few hours later, Kikuru sets some webbing on fire, and he immediately senses the repel spider coming, so he puts out the fire. Once the spider attacks, Kikuru swiftly moves out of the way and jumps to the tree behind it, but he's still uncertain whether he can shake it off until he reaches the shelter with the hole in his stomach. As he zooms through the forest, he remembers that the hardest things to deal with when facing a repel spider are its venom and threads, and he realizes that he'd die if he takes one more hit because this repel spider is much deadlier than the others of its kind. Suddenly, the spider starts blasting webbing around, but Kikuru dodges and jumps to a tree, and he realizes that the spider is similar to Donna because it requires a line of sight to make its attacks. As the repel spider moves in for an attack, Kikuru grabs his blade and jumps out of the way, but he's surprised that the spider is showing no attempts to evade, even though he's shown his murderous intent. The spider tries to turn him into a donut with its sharp legs, but Kikuru evades its attack once again, so the spider spams webbing blasts, which Kikuru dodges by moving like Jackie Chan. He does a leg split between two rocks while holding onto a branch, and he fears that the spider could try to run away as a result of his provocation, but his biggest issue is that he's currently fighting for his life because he isn't good at parkour. At the shelter, Donna remembers Kikuru placing a talisman into the ground and telling her that when he returns, she should close her eyes and prepare to cast an advanced spell. He assured her that he'd place some more talismans into the ground so that she wouldn't have to worry about being attacked. When she asked where she could use the toilet, Kikuru immediately replied that she should do it in that spot, causing her to freak out. In the present, Donna is sitting in the middle of the talismans, but praying for Kikuru to come back fast because she really wants to go potty. Luckily, her wish comes true, as Kikuru arrives with the spider in pursuit of him, and the spider eventually corners him by the building. Kikuru starts losing blood and becoming dazed, but he isn't too bothered because he only needs to parry one more blow from the spider for their plan to work out. As the spider launches its sharp leg at him, Kikuru dodges, and it pierces through the window, which blasts the repel spider with a wave of flames. 30 minutes ago, Dan was setting the building on fire, and Kikuru explained that she was doing a process called backdraft, which is an explosive phenomenon that occurs in the scene of a fire. Back in the present, the spider's limbs start falling off as it screams in pain, so Kikuru dashes in and slashes off its other legs. Since he's successfully sealed off its movements, he signals Donna to finish it off, so she fires a powerful flame spell called Ignica at the spider, while Kikuru jumps to hide behind a rock. While lying on the ground, Kikuru is relieved that it's all over, but Donna suddenly returns with half of her outfit blown off by her own attack, so he promises to lend her his coat. However, she suddenly lies on his body and explains that her legs gave in because she's drained of mana, but he complains that she shouldn't collapse on him. Kikuru is surprised that she isn't embarrassed by the situation, so she explains that she's giving him free service because he worked hard that day and looked super cool, but bro can't gather his thoughts because of her tiny oranges in front of him. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows, which makes Donna feel cold, causing her to fall on Kikuru again, and she mentions that she's about to spill her waterfall on him, which makes him freak out. Later that evening, Medina is writing a report about her latest mission, and she remembers the saucy incident with Hitamu, so she starts playing with her cookie to recreate the feeling. The next morning, Kikuru wakes up, but he's still tired from the battle the previous day, and he wonders why his injury remained after Donna used her fluids on his body. Just then, the doorbell rings, and when he answers, he sees Hitamu, who says she's there to take care of him. Shortly after, she serves him a bunch of food, so he thanks her for the delicious meal, but worries because the other girls only know how to cook monstrosities. When she asks about his injury, he says it's fine because Medina patched it up the previous day, but he's still feeling exhausted after moving around a lot the previous day, which makes her feel relieved. She then reveals that Donna is feeling weird about taking the credit for the spider's defeat, but Kikuru says it's okay because she was the one who landed the final blow, and he doesn't need any more achievements or popularity since he's retiring. However, Hitamu suddenly asks him to go shopping with her. During the trip, Kikuru asks her what she's shopping for, so she explains that she wants to buy ingredients for dinner. Kikuru notices that Hitamu is really popular in the market, and she even gets bonuses from the merchants, but this confuses him since he's lived there for 15 years without any cheerful market conversations. Suddenly, a merchant hands her a cucumber and recommends that she use it to polish her honeypot, and Kikuru notices that the degenerates are low-key trying to force themselves on her, so he warns her about it. However, Hitamu claims they're just being friendly with her and asks him to greet them, but when he goes, the merchants start threatening him, thinking he's her boyfriend. After Hitamu clears the air, they hand them some groceries and thank Kikuru for always protecting their city. Following this, Hitamu and Kikuru cheerfully explore the city and help out random old people they see on the way. On their way back, they run into some midget boys who ask Hitamu to play with them, but one of them falls, so she comforts him by hugging him. Suddenly, the boy starts playing with her cushions, so she backs away, but the boys suddenly tie her up and start recreating their favorite Mia Khalifa scenes with her while Kikuru watches in shock. Afterwards, she complains to Kikuru that the boys have been acting differently from how they used to, but he says it's because she tempted them with her cupcakes. When he asks why she took him around the city, she explains that she wants him to be aware of everything he saved so that he can be proud of his accomplishments and retire with a smile. So he pats her on the head and thanks her. A few days later, Kikuru suddenly becomes Green Arrow on steroids, as he successfully snipes a bunch of monsters from a tree, and he realizes that it's been a long time since he last used his arrows because he's been scared of hitting the girls with his arrows. Noma tagged along with the team because she wants to learn a thing or two from them, but she's surprised that they've already defeated 10 monsters, so Kikuru explains that it's the regular pace with Hitamu's recon on their side. As she observes the monster, Kikuru watches her closely because he suspects that she's also a ticking time bomb that would soon explode with freakiness, just like the other girls. While walking ahead, Kikuru asks Noma why she's joining them when she has her own party members, who are much more experienced in fighting than he is. So she explains that Yu and Senlik have left the city because their pride was stained after Kikuru defeated the spider. Back then, they promised her that they'd become stronger than Kikuru someday and left to go train on Paradise Island. However, Kikuru is annoyed that the guards in the city are getting fewer and fewer, so he has the mother of all crash outs, until Hitamu calms him down by promising to protect the city with him. Noma praises Hitamu's recon ability, claiming it's better than Spider-Man's senses, and Hitamu flexes the ability by telling her about some snakes creeping underground, but ends up getting pulled into a pit by the snakes again. As the snakes feast on her milk packs, Noma tries to help but gets entangled as well, so she freezes both of them with ice magic and asks Kikuru to finish them off. Afterwards, Noma thanks Kikuru for saving her again, and he praises her ice magic, claiming it's just as deadly as Doma's blood demon art. Hitamu glazes her for being able to use both black and white magic, but Noma complains that she can't learn any advanced spells from them, and her skills are still lacking for her job. She also points out that she can barely defeat enemies in one strike, and she tends to leave the finishing blow to someone else, just like earlier. But Kikuru says her shortcomings are acceptable compared to the worthless idiots he normally works with. This makes her happy, especially since her former teammates always sidelined her, and she thanks him for seeing her as a proper guard, causing him to blush. Kikiru realizes that Noma has low self-esteem because she knows her own weaknesses, and he realizes that she's the ideal partner for him because she operates with a level head just like he does. While watching her, he realizes that her appearance and soft personality feel very familiar to Enome, and he low-key feels that he could continue his job if he got to go on quests with Noma, because she feels like the girlfriend he always wanted. When Noma asks if he's okay, he blushes while telling her that he's okay, and he notices that he's reacting like an innocent schoolboy around her. However, when Hidemu brings up how the other guards left town to protect Noma, Noma reveals that she's actually a boy, and this makes both of them freak out. Hidemu immediately apologizes for thinking he was a girl, but Kikiru swallows a large dose of copium by convincing himself that he already knew Noma was a boy, and he takes a walk to clear his head. While walking away, he tells himself that it's okay that Noma is a boy because he never had feelings for him in the first place, but he suddenly starts running and crying, so he jumps like Super Mario Brother to another part of the forest, where he finally decides to take the L. Suddenly, he hears Hidemu screaming for help, so he rushes back to save them. In the other part of the forest, a slime is overwhelming Hidemu and Noma, and part of the slime is stuffed into Noma's mouth, which makes him unable to cast spells. As the slime's abuse becomes more intense, Noma is surprised that he's being attacked with such rated moves, and he tries to think up a plan, but everything seems impossible in his current state. Meanwhile, the fan service queen is getting brutally teased by the other slime, but luckily, Kikiru arrives and destroys the slime's core with an arrow shot. When he checks on Noma, he sees that he's successfully defeated the slime by sneaking inside it to destroy its core, but Noma complains that he's half-baked because he looks battered after a fight with a single slime. However, Kikiru tells him to give himself some credit because he was resourceful enough to defeat a slime when Hidemu couldn't, and he's impressed that he could easily name Noma's strengths even though they just met. On their way out, Noma thanks Kikiru for letting her join the mission since it's helped her get back on track as a guard and learn how to fight with the power of friendship. He then reveals that he doesn't have any friends to cooperate with and asks Kikiru to let him join their missions sometimes so he can receive guidance from Kikiru. When he calls Kikiru master, Bro's mind suddenly goes blank, so he agrees to Noma's request but warns him that his guidance will be strict. Soon after, they return to the guild, where Noma explains to Kikiru that he looks that way because fairy folk don't have much difference in appearance between man and woman, but Kikiru still feels that he's an irregular. The next day, Kikiru meets up with Enome and Misu in a field and informs them that there are no monsters around the forest, and he guesses that the monsters moved their homes to another section of the forest after the spider attack. Enome thanks Kikiru and apologizes for making him desk with the aftermath, and Misu thanks him as well for handling the spider situation, but he's still troubled because he has to clean up the shed that he and Donna used during the fight. When he asks why Misu is there, Enome explains that she has a special task for her, and this makes her feel happy that she's finally useful. Just then, some cows arrive, which Enome introduces as rock cows, and she instructs Misu to crack open the rocks around her eyes and put them in a jar since they're used for medicine. Suddenly, the cow starts toying with her cushions, so she warns them to be careful, but Misu is confused because her body is basically a washboard. While tending to the cows, Enome confesses to Kikiru that she feels guilty for making him push himself to fight the spider, but he says it's not her fault because he's the one who neglected the spider's existence all this time. Seeing this, Misu admires how cool Kikiru is, but she accidentally hits her hand with the hammer and screams out loud, causing the cows to go feral and start attacking the girls. Eventually, the cows start taking their fun to extremes, so Kikiru takes out his blade to destroy them, but Enome and Misu beg him not to hurt them. To save Enome, Misu stuffs her chest with a pillow, and this makes the cows attack her, thinking they're natural milk factories, but the pillow eventually spills out, causing the cows to regain composure. The next day, Kikiru and the gang explore a deeper part of the forest, where they're surrounded by a horde of boar monsters, and as usual, the Lolas start complaining while Hidemu is getting ragdolled by a slime monster. Kikiru orders Donna to free Hidemu, but the useless mage says she's already drained of energy, so he asks Midna to cover them with support magic, only to see her shivering like a leaf in the corner. Since it's an emergency, Hana asks Kikiru for permission to use Frenzy, but before he can even respond, she activates it, and her brain immediately goes into loony mode. Seeing this, Kikiru decides to run for his life, but Hana immediately grabs him and does her usual goofy actions while destroying the monsters. Soon after, Kikiru is lying exhausted on a chair, and Hidemu apologizes for being useless, but he says it's okay because he was the one who misjudged the situation. He realizes that he can't cover more than one person because he doesn't have any range skills for attack or defense, and after remembering how flawed the girls are, he considers recruiting No Ma but realizes that he can't leave the main healer position to him. Since his brain is cooked, he dismisses the girls and informs them that they'd have to train on their own the next day, so they all leave, but Hana feels worried about him. In the ladies' dressing room, the other girls goof off as usual, but Hana stares at her armor quietly. Shortly afterwards, she meets up with Enome and explains that she's bothered because she can't seem to get Kikuru to trust her, even though she's saved their comrades several times. Hana tells Enome that she can't express her feelings to Kikuru without overthinking because she isn't as bright as the others, and with tears spilling from her eyes, she asks Enome if she's done something to make Kikuru hate her. A while later, Enome tells Kikuru about everything she heard from Hana, so he assures her that he'll handle it, but on his way out, he tells her to gather his ashes if anything happens to him. Later that evening, Kikuru tells Hana's guards to come clean with her, but they complain that it would ruin their relationship, so he explains that telling her about the flower frenzy would be best, because if she keeps using it without control, she could get hurt. The maid expresses her worries that Hana would seal the skill if she finds out about it, and she hands Kikuru a book, which has pictures of her in frenzy mode, while telling him that they won't be able to see that playful side of her anymore. She asks him to reconsider, but he shows her a tape he got from Donna, which has hundreds of Pornhub videos of Hana in frenzy mode, and the butler is shocked that Donna also goons to Hana's clips. Kikuru reveals that the tape also contains recordings of their quest so far, and he plans to invite her to his house and show her the videos, so the guards agree to cooperate. However, when he asks them to join him at his house, they all dash away at lightning speed to avoid Hana's wrath, so Kikuru calls them frauds. Meanwhile, Hana is sitting on her bed when she gets a call from Kikuru, who asks her if she's free, and once she confirms that she is, he invites her to come to his house immediately. Hana immediately freaks out, so he explains that what he needs to tell her is difficult to say on the phone, which is why he'll explain it at his house. After he ends the call, Hana goes into that tub, and she blushes as she wonders if Kikuru doesn't actually hate her, but she realizes that Enome told him about her earlier discussion. This makes her come to the conclusion that he's calling her to tell her how he feels about her, so her heart starts pounding uncontrollably. Later that day, Kikuru opens his door, and he's stunned to see Hana wearing a gorgeous outfit. As she walks into his home, he notices that she smells more floral than usual, and she hands him some homemade cookies, but he starts panicking because he knows her meal could be deadlier than a bioweapon. However, when he opens the box, he sees some actually decent-looking cookies, and she brags about how she's become better than Gordon Ramsay, so he reminds her that he's yet to taste them. He then reveals that the reason he called her is to have her review the tape, and as he places the tape into the player, he warns her that what she's about to see might be scarier than the Insidious movies for her. After playing the clip, Kikuru immediately jumps away like a monkey to protect himself, and Hana's mind goes blank as she watches herself fooling around in frenzy mode. She accuses him of making the video with ChatGPT, but Kikuru explains that it's what she looks like when she's in frenzy mode. When the video gets to the Seuss parts, Hana tackles Kikuru to block his vision, but he ends up getting smothered by her enormous tanks, so to save himself, he shoves some of her cookies in her mouth, which makes her outfit explode. Eventually, he escapes her, so she turns off the television and asks him to borrow her some clothes. When things have calmed down, Hana explains to him that her father was a strong knight who couldn't slay many monsters due to his tight schedule. However, one day, her father praised Kikuru, even though he rarely praised people, and this made her adore Kikuru as well. In the present, Hana cries while saying that the people at her home are too scared of her to tell her the truth, but her guards suddenly appear and prove her wrong by preaching about how much they love her. Kikuru then explains that he doesn't hate her, and even though his original intention was to have her seal off the frenzy, he's changed his mind and decided that she should use it during their next battle, because it's a powerful skill that saves so many people. Hana worries that it could hurt him again, but he explains that she can learn to use it while being conscious to avoid the backlash. The church that worships the holy bird, the Phoenix Church, and the temple that worships the god of thunder, Zenith, the Zenith Temple, are run by white and black sorcerers, respectively, and they major in opposing fields of magic, which is why they've disliked each other for decades. In the present, Kikuru is watching a goofy representation of this rivalry, as the white sorceress, Maidina, and the black sorceress, Donna, are pulling each other's cheeks in the forest. Kikuru asks them to stop, but the airheads start pulling harder instead, so he pulls Donna away and asks her what happened. Donna explains that while he and Noma were patrolling the forest, she tried to start up a conversation with Maidana using a topic she felt wouldn't be weird to discuss with someone younger. Back then, Donna told Maidana that she and Hana became close friends because of their shared love for video games and anime. When she asked Maidana about her hobbies, Maidana said she loved mystery novels, and the one she was currently reading won an award. However, Donna pulled the most brutal move in the playbook of every salty manga reader by spoiling the ending, and this made Maidana lose her mind. In the present, Maidana is still crashing out over the spoiler, and Noma advises her to forgive Donna, but she keeps complaining about Donna's actions, so Kikuru asks Donna to apologize. However, as Donna apologizes, she drops another spoiler, which makes Maidana crash out even more, but she reveals that she never read the novel to begin with, causing Maidana to whine even more. Maidana then realizes that her whining would make Noma see her as someone weird, so she explains that she's always sincere to people with common sense, and Noma admits that it's wonderful that they can both speak their minds to each other, but he warns them to be careful since they're in the forest. Seeing this, Donna realizes that Maidana treats Noma way better than she treats Kikuru and herself, but Kikuru isn't surprised because he knows that red sorcerers who can use both magic types are usually made to become the mediator between the dark and white sorcerers. Kikuru tells Donna that he's surprised that Maidana is getting closer to a fellow guy when she previously asked for his guidance, but Donna is surprised that Noma is a boy, so she asks him to confirm. Hearing this, Maidana tells her to stop being rude by calling Noma a boy, but Noma clears the air by revealing to her that he's a boy, and the shock hits her like a blade through the spine. Maidana starts whining over the fact that she planned to bind with Noma as fellow members of the Zero Plot Committee, but since Noma still feels like an angel to her, she decides to treat him as her female bestie moving forward. Suddenly, they hear a pack of monsters approaching, so Kikuru runs to face them, but Donna complains that Kikuru is taking down all the monsters when the training session was meant for sorcerers, so Noma explains that he's leaving the small fry for them since the beast he ran to face is a powerful one. They start arguing over who's the weakest among them, but Noma sees a tentacle monster about to attack Donna, so she shoves her out of the way, but gets caught by the tentacle monster instead. While entangled, she explains that the monster is called a buryip, and warns them to be careful because it camouflages as a plant to catch its prey off guard. Donna asks him to be careful since the monster shows no mercy to boys as well, and the buryip proves her right by pulling off his plot covers, allowing her to see his baby elephant, which clears her doubts about his true gender. So Maidana asks Donna to save him with her black magic, but Donna says she'll hit him if she tries. Out of desperation, Donna throws a rock at the monster, but it ends up hitting Noma in the stomach, so Maidana suggests that they trade blows with the monster while healing him repeatedly. Donna disagrees with the plan, so the airhead duo argue for several minutes before deciding to wait for Kikuru. However, another group of buryip appear behind them and starts violating them as well while they beg for mercy. Eventually, Kikuru returns and saves them all by destroying these unholy monsters, and Noma apologizes to him for causing trouble, but he says it's his fault for not seeing the monsters in time. Noma then apologizes for showing the ladies his shrimp, but Donna says it's fine because his love bone is low-key cuter than Kikuru's, and this makes Maidana accuse them of cracking each other. Donna makes things worse by saying she touched Kikuru's rocket while it was still in the package, and Maidana doubts her until she sees that Kikuru is looking flustered, so she calls him a creep. A while later, Kikuru is in the training grounds, fighting for his life while dodging a swarm of attacks from Hana. But eventually, Hana tackles him to the ground, so Enome activates a lullaby spell, which puts her to sleep. While watching her, Enome explains that a large number of parties want to recruit Hana because she's slain the most monsters in the city so far, but she can't allow her to operate anywhere else in her current state to prevent more crazy scenarios. Kikuru explains that Hana has admired him for a long time, and her behavior in frenzy mode is a result of those heightened senses, and he doesn't think she actually loves him like she claims when she's in that state. At the guild hall, Misu tells A-Sign that her mom escorted Hana and Kikuru to a training session in the mountains, and A-Sign suspects that they could be having a triangle tango, so she rushes to meet them. Back in the training grounds, Hana wakes up and tries to pounce on Kikuru, but he dodges, so she prepares to attack again. Seeing this, Enome stops her by telling her that Kikuru likes ladylike girls, so Frenzy Hana starts acting like a Disney princess. However, Enome notices that Kikuru is injured, so she tends to the wound, but Hana gets jealous and starts attacking again. Kikuru dodges the attack, but the shockwave rips open Enome's melon bags, so Hana matches the energy by exposing her jugs as well and sandwiching Kikuru in between their mega cushions. Afterwards, Hana starts to feel bad for her actions, so Enome and Kikuru comfort her, but Esine suddenly arrives and freaks out because she thinks they're abandoning her to start a new family with Hana. A few days later, Kikuru and his party meet in school and spend hours bonding together. After school, Hidemu confesses that she loves him and tackles him to the ground, but he sees that all their plot armor has suddenly vanished. Suddenly, all the other girls arrive with no plot covers as well and tackle Kikuru to the ground while confessing their love for him. When Hidemu asks Kikuru what he thinks of them, Kikuru finally wakes up from this Gunnar dream, and he's relieved to see that he didn't spill any white gravy on himself, so he decides to put in more effort in the quests. Later that day, Kikuru and the girls complete their quest, so Enome hands them their salaries for the month. As Donna takes her envelope, she's surprised that it's only been a month since she became an adventurer, because all the constant drama made it feel like forever. Hidemu asks Enome if it's okay for her to take the money since she's never been able to take down a monster by herself, but Enome says it's all chill and hands her the paycheck while explaining that Kikuru appreciates her because she's the one who's completed the most quests with him. After Hana collects her pay, Hidemu notices that Maidina hasn't received hers yet, so Maidina explains that she'll get her pay from the church because the money for white sorcerers comes from a section on the payroll called White Magic Insurance. Hidemu remembers that she saw the White Magic Insurance column when she was registering to become an adventurer, so Maidina explains that it's a forced insurance that all guards must subscribe to because of white magic or the exclusive method of healing people. And Nome explains that salaries are broken down into a fixed salary for every job and a percentage from exterminations, which means that each of them would receive a different amount. However, Hidemu still feels happy with the amount she was given, and Donna declares that she'll spend all her money on trashy video games. As the girls discuss their plans, Hidemu says she wants to pay Kikuru back for never giving up on her during their missions and always protecting her. The other girls agree that he's been kind to them in the same way, and they start brainstorming about ways to make him happy. A while later, the girls are having a shower together, and Maidina admits that she doesn't know anything about Kikuru's preferences, so Donna explains that it's because he's a guy who's dedicated his life to combat. Hana suggests giving Kikuru a knife, but Hidemu says it's something he uses on a regular basis, and Donna suggests that they give him the youth he's dreamed of as a present instead. The next morning, Kikuru is still sleeping when someone walks into his room and tries grabbing him, so his auto-defense mode activates, allowing him to grab and tackle the invader. However, he sees that the intruder is Maidina, who begs him not to harm her, but Donna suddenly takes a picture of them in that Suis position and jokingly threatens to publish it in the newspaper. Just then, the other girls arrive and explain that their goal is to give him the youth he's always dreamed of as a reward for all his help. When he asks why they're wearing uniforms, Donna explains that they're posing as his school sweethearts, but he points out that it's weird that they came to a single guy's house in those outfits. Donna admits that they got stared at by everyone on the road as they made their way there, but Kikuru starts freaking out because he knows his neighbor will start calling him Johnny Sins, so she explains that they can clear up the matter by going out in a healthy fashion. However, Kikuru says he doesn't have time to humor them since he plans to go meet someone that day, so Donna decides that they'd cook and clean at his home while he's away. Suddenly, he gets a call from someone who asks him to come by with Hitamu, but he complains that his house would become a living hell if he brings her there. However, the person keeps pressuring him, so he finally agrees to bring her later. After ending the call, he explains to everyone that he's meeting a scholar guard who's been helping him since he was younger, to ask why the monsters are so aggressive when they track women. Hearing this, Hidemu agrees to go with him, and he tries to tell the others to go home, but they all declare that they'd prepare the best dishes on MasterChef for him. Seeing that he can't discourage them, Kikuru permits them and tells Hidemu that they'd leave when he's done preparing. Soon after, Kikuru and Hidemu arrive at a bookshop where they meet an imp in glasses named Mill, who accuses Kikuru of being a bigger weirdo than Hisoka for making Hidemu wear a sailor uniform to please him, but Kikuru explains that he has the wrong idea. Mill introduces himself to Hidemu and takes them to his private quarters to explain things properly. At home, the girls actually manage to cook a meal that tastes delicious, but Donna claims that they're only copying the author of the recipe, so they all decide to upgrade the food themselves. Back at the bookstore, Mill explains that normal people have a mana absorption rate of 1%, but Hidemu is special because her rate is 100%, and the mana she loses is instantly recovered by the magic particles around her. The reason she recovers so quickly is that the mana always remains in its purest form, unlike other humans, and this is why she's the perfect meal for monsters. Mill also explains that she's more sensitive than others because of this mana purity, and her mana also fuses with the environment very easily, which is why she always has accidents. Kikuru asks why the monsters treat women differently from men, but Mill refuses to tell him the answer, claiming that he's not ready for it yet. On their way back, Hidemu is worried that she wasted Kikuru's time, but he pats her head while saying that it wasn't a waste because he wanted to find out about her secret for himself and thank her for all her hard work. When they get home, they see the other 3 girls in weird positions after getting bodied by their own food. The next day, Anome wishes the team good luck on their quest, but the girls end up getting violated by the monsters again while Kikuru drowns in frustration. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed and watch this video on screen.